Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope you guys can hear me loud and clear. Welcome to this session on how to build a career in finance. My name is Anand Venkatesan. I am the founder and director at Mentors Capital, and we are organizing this webinar for your college, for the society. Before we begin the session, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to quickly sort of introduce what Mentors Capital is all about. I'll quickly also introduce Chirag. I don't think he needs any introduction anymore. Most of you know the background that he comes from, but I guess a little bit of context is about what we at Mentors Capital are trying to do. I think the question starts with, we consider ourselves as a mentorship platform. So what do students really need mentorship about? What are the typical questions that you and I worry about? Well, there's a word cloud that sort of represents the kind of confusion that you and I typically face, right? Millions of questions: what to study, which sector to go into, where to study, how to go about this entire process, whom to trust, whom to seek guidance from, right? So many questions, many problems that we all grapple with. And our firm belief is that mentorship is the idea, is the solution to every single one of these problems, right? So that's what Mentors Capital offers. We're a platform that gives access to a network of expert mentors, much like Chirag here. And our mentors basically span various sort of roles that they play. Some of them are students studying, in colleges in India and abroad. Some of them are, academicians doing research, maybe pursuing a PhD or a master's. Some of them have joined the corporate world, are professionals in a particular domain or a sector. And some others, in fact, are also part of admission committees in some of these B schools and some of these institutions. So all in all, I think we have a very eclectic mix of professionals, experts who understand, exactly the sort of confusion that you're facing and can guide you on the basis of how their journey went, right? So that's the essential idea. What you can do is you can visit our website, explore the network of mentors. You can enter the field that you want to get into, the country that you want to go to, put that into the search tab, and you'll find some mentors that pop up, right? And immediately you can connect with any single one of those, right? The like I said, we have a list of eclectic mentors from across the globe. So many top universities that that feature in our list. More are being added as we speak. We're currently at about 150 mentors or 100 plus mentors, but very soon gonna double this number in the next couple of weeks and more. And so plenty of choice for you, and more importantly, it's not so much the quantum of mentors, it's also about the attitude that our mentors bring to the table. Every single one of them is committed. Every single one of us uh, places student needs above all else, and that's something that you won't find in other places, right? That's something that you get only at Mentors Capital. These are the kind of services we offer. I'm not going to waste any more time. Just suffice to say that we are mentorship and an admissions support platform, which means you can reach out to us about questions that you have about work, about career, about fields, but also about where to apply, how to apply. Is my application good enough? Are my essays good enough? How do I prepare for the GRE? How do I score that elusive 99 percentile in the CAT, right? So all of those services offered online through our through the Mentors Capital platform. And I'm going to leave you with this one last thought. Introductory offer is that every single mentor that you can connect with, the first conversation is completely on us, right? The idea from our end is that we want you to explore, we want you to connect with some of these top names and experience how mentorship works. Do give us a shout back if you liked it, if you didn't like it, so that we can improve our systems, right? On that note, I'm going to introduce Chirag. Chirag is an ex-student of ours, makes us extremely proud. Was in the same boat that you guys are today. Well, he already, came in with a background in finance. He knew he was already running a firm of his own, already, a fund manager, and knew enough and more about the nitty-gritties of finance before he eventually, got into IIM Lucknow. Post that, he's been working for Accenture. That's management consulting that he does. So he's ideally suited to give you advice not just on finance, but also on this journey that took him into one of the top IMs in the country, and how that sort of career sort of shifted towards management consulting, which is also a very, very sought after field. So without much ado, I'm gonna, ask Chirag to take over. Chirag?
Yeah. Thank you, Anand sir. Thanks for the warm introduction.
Absolutely.
And, good afternoon, everyone. I'll just share my screen quickly and run you through the agenda for today. And I hope this session will be helpful for you guys. Uh, can someone confirm if they can see my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah, it's coming up now.
See my screen now? Is it visible now?
It's visible.
Yeah. So the idea of the session is to just to give you a brief about what my journey has been. And I think, sorry, my system just hanged. Yeah, I think it's now is it. Yeah. So idea of the session is to give you brief about my journey, like how my experience has evolved over the years and why I made certain choices. And probably you guys are attending this session, so you are also interested in knowing what are the opportunities available to you if you get into a good B school, and how to grab those opportunities basically. So I will start with my own journey, then something that I have witnessed. It is common in MBA admits, like my peers, my friends over at different colleges, and then how a career in finance can be built, and the various jobs you can, corporate jobs you can take from after a B school. And lastly, something personal finance tips. I am sure that most of you guys, some of you might be joining jobs, some of you might be joining B schools directly, but ultimately, maybe today or after 2 years, you all will come with the come out with the jobs, and you will be requiring some kind of guidance towards what to do with your money. So if you are not planning to spend 100% of your monthly salary, then you definitely need a plan to basically have a allocation towards your assets, and how to do the same. So that's the idea. And in case you have any questions in between on any of the slides, please feel free to unmute or even put it in chat. I'm not sure if I'll get the chat pop up, but it will be good if you can just unmute and ask your doubts. So let's start with my journey. So I did my BCom from Hansraj College, Delhi University. I graduated back in 2017, and there I did my BCom honors, as I said. And apart from it, so the light blue column, if you can see in this slide, it is more of my choices. So dark blue is something that you go for in an organization or an institution, but light blue is something that I focused on, or I got something extra from those institutes. So when I was at Hansraj, I was part of placement and quizzing club. So try to just go through. Sorry. Yeah. So I'll cover that scope of finance as well. So in at Hansraj, I was part of placement cell and quizzing club. I participated in a lot of student summit as well. I went to a fully sponsored trip to Dubai. I represented my college there. I went to EY headquarters to represent my college there. And I also participated in a lot of national level finance and strategy competitions, and one quite a few of them. So that was my focus at Hansraj, and this somewhere built my interest towards finance and all these competitions, all these activities, talking to corporates, and these were like foundation blocks for me. And when I entered IIM Lucknow, my focus was again on finance, so I became part of a investment club here. I was running a student-led fund. We pitched batch that give us your money, and we will invest it somewhere in equity markets in that instrument, and then we'll give you returns whatever we get. And thankfully we were able to get a good return there. And I was again part of quizzing club because quizzing is something that I like. And lastly, I also focused on a lot of academics at IIM Lucknow. So I didn't focus on academics in my BCom. As you can see, light blue boxes are more there. And that's why I focused on academics at IIM Lucknow. And I also got top grade in macroeconomics course. So I was made a student tutor there. So if you have any kinds of doubt with macroeconomics, I was the go-to people for the junior batch. Um, Moving on. So this is more my academic life, and this has been my professional life. So I started with the as a senior analyst at Bain Capability Center, and I was part of corporate finance team there initially. So again, so if you can try to see that I had something in finance when I was doing BCom honors. I had interest in finance. I participated in competitions, etc. So the company recognized the same, and they put me in a team which they felt I might be let's say in ready to work or maybe passionate to work more. So I was in corporate finance team there. Then I dropped out of there, and I started my own financial advisory, and it was more around the personal finance that I'll be covering later on in the last section. And currently now I am in again some sort of corporate finance advisory only at Accenture. So again, companies are saying what kind of things I am interested into, the areas or the you can say the industries I am interested into, and this I think is something that companies will definitely keep in mind while allocating teams to you. So if you are not planning your job, if you are taking a job maybe by luck or by any by any other means at any of the firms, but firms do realize that you might have some kind of inclination. So it's every time I advise young people that just voice your opinion, that this is something you like, and you might be interested in doing the work. So this has been my journey so far. Moving on, so I hope that as you guys are attending this session, you might also want to know uh, what an MBA does, or how to make most out of your MBA, how you can get into a good B school at a uh, in India specifically to get a good MBA degree, and what kind of a person is best suited for them. So over my experience at IIM Lucknow, and interacting with a lot of people across batches from Hansraj, even at my workplace. So most of the people have went to some or the other B school, India or abroad, Wharton, Chicago, and Chicago Booth School, Harvard. Then in India, I'm ABCL, all the good B schools. So what I found as a basic skill set that these people had was firstly on the core or technical skills that are more of your you can say what you have studied so far or what your life has been so far, and those have been like you can say the founding blocks for those people, like these people are recognized in their work. So that's why the B school admits them. And the other is a people skill, which I think a lot of us not focus on. uh, these are the especially the skills that are latent skills that you won't be able to recognize them on the first go, or maybe someone else will help you identify these traits, that you are okay, you are good at this thing. But these are the traits that I think make much more difference than your core or technical skills. So if I have to deep dive into these skills, logical thinking is basically if you can break down complex problems into pieces, if you can make small winnable battles out of those war, out of that war. So that is what is logical thinking all about. Next thing is subject matter expertise. So if you say you are an engineer, and maybe let's say mechanical engineer, then you should be able to tell uh, me a lot of things about mechanical engineering, from basic to maybe advanced level. I won't say that as a fresher you will have a lot of knowledge of the advanced level, but your basics should be rock solid, and it should be also proven by your academic record. that you're getting good grades, or maybe in some of your favorite subjects during your engineering, you are having top grades. So this is something that I have found common in the most of the MBA admits. And the other part, the people skills that I have found to be common are leadership skills. That if 4 or 5 people are working in a group, someone will take a lead. That okay, I'll compile this document, or maybe I'll just submit it. I'll do the most of the complex part. So those are kind of the traits that define your leadership. Similarly, the confidence you have. So if I ask you something, you should be 100% confident in replying. It should not be blatant lies, but confidence should reflect through your knowledge. So if you have the knowledge, then confidence will directly come to you. And lastly, it's thinking on the feet. So in outside world, in the corporate world, or even if you start your own enterprise, thinking on the feet is something that is very much underrated. So all those 4 years of engineering can, or 3 years of your BCom cannot teach you anything. But 10 minutes outside in a world can. That's frankly from my experience, because thinking on the feet it can't be taught in your academic books. So this is something you develop over time, and this is by getting out of your comfort zone, maybe negotiating at a local grocery store, and coming up with some kind of reasoning. These are the kind of very small examples, but thinking of thinking on the feet. So these things will definitely help in your B school as well, because in B school you will be juggling with a lot of things. So at one time you'll be having classes, another time you'll having a case competition, or at the same time you'll be having a mock interview or a case slot. Then you have to think on your feet that which one is better for you, which one deserves more time, and which one you should go for. So this is my take on what you can do to improve yourself or your candidature for an MBA. Next, moving on. I think my system is, yeah. So moving on to careers in finance. So basically, whenever you hear from anyone that they are working in finance domain, but you're not sure what they are doing. So I have classified most of the jobs that come for finance domain in these 5 buckets. So firstly, it's corporate finance, and all of these jobs are after MBA and not a graduate jobs. So corporate finance is basically from an industry perspective, that a budgeting department is there, a finance and planning department is there in any big organization, name it maybe Aditya Birla or Reliance. So they have this department which analyzes all their profit and loss accounts, their balance sheets, and they make forecast about what the future might look like, what will the future income. And second is a capital budgeting arms, which are more about which areas to enter, where to set up plant, and uh, making heavy capital decisions. So those are the jobs that come for MBA. Next is financial consulting. So this is something I am doing. I am into consulting, but I am working on finance part. This you can do in two kind of forms, I would say. There are some specialized firms which do only financial consulting, but they are very less known in India or less popular in B schools. Second is you can do finance consulting in top tier firms like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte, Accenture, AT Kearney, all these firms. So there you can work in their private equity arms, M&A arms, and corporate finance consulting. So I have been with the corporate finance consulting. Next is your investment banking. So when I used to hear from my seniors before going for an MBA, every time someone said they work in finance, at least I thought that it's investment banking. So investment banking is more about your bulge bracket banks, Goldman Sachs, JPM. Then there are Indian banks as well, Kotak, Indian boutique firms such as Spark Capital. All these are investment banking firms. So the work here is more around the deals, that you are doing due diligence for some two big players in the market, and then you're coming up with what is a reasonable valuation for the same, like a lot of complex work. This is what I can give you as a top line, that what this job might entail. And next is a trading and research. So this is more from the Indian side, you can say that there are a lot of firms coming up in India, like from last 5 years, that they are specialization into derivatives trading. There are firms like Future, if I'm not wrong, Excella, then Futures First. These are the firms for derivative tradings. Then public equities, family offices, family offices like Azim Premji Invest. Then there are Raintree. All these are family offices at big industrialists. They have set up their own kind of office to invest their money, to manage their finances. And lastly is mutual fund AMCs and even pension funds, for that matter. So these are broadly the areas. And lastly, investment professionals, like this is a title given, but you can work with private equity firms, venture capital firms, and even fintech firms. So a lot of fintech firms are also coming up. Recently, Revolut, they have started their operations in India. So they are hiring a lot of investment professionals for this work. And these are the kind of jobs that you can get from an MBA. But it highly depends which B school you are joining and which opportunities come there. So my humble advice would be to just research on the profiles before joining a B school, because you might get certainly disappointed if you want let's say trading and research jobs, because these are generally found in lower tier MBA colleges in India, not top 5 or top 10. But if you go below, then you can get these jobs. Similarly, for investment banking, you need to be in top 3 or 4 colleges in India to get a good investment banking job. Otherwise, boutique firms or small firms are always there. But for the brands, if you want to work with them, then you will have to carefully select your B school. And next, how can you build your profile for these jobs? So talking more from an engineer's perspective, I understand that you guys don't have much exposure to finance, and most of the things on your CV would look like something related to engineering, which a finance role doesn't really you can say relate to. So how you can build your profile around the same? Firstly, you can have a relevant work experience. So by relevant work experience, I mean that forget about brand from your engineering school, sorry, and join a small finance firm, maybe any MSME, where you can have a finance related job, maybe financial planning, corporate finance role, or even derivatives role. So that role will help you in establishing your credentials in B school, that yes, this is the kind of person who has worked in a similar domain, but maybe this person can fit our bill. So that's how it might help you. Or you can work with this JPM, GS. They have all these software engineer profiles, if I'm not wrong there. So I have some friends who worked in these software development profiles, and later on they made a switch to finance, because recruiters they have a perception that you might know something about finance, or at least you have worked in a finance firm, so you might be a suitable candidate for the same, or you are culturally fit for the role. So these are kind of you can say small tricks that might help you in landing a good finance job. Other one is certifications. So you can try towards your CFA or FRM certification before joining B school, or at least I would advise you should clear CFA level 1, or should be a level 2 candidate or level 3 candidate if you can pursue CFA or FRM. So both of these are good certifications, but they will definitely add to your candidature if you are looking for a good corporate job of finance. Next thing is to develop your knowledge around finance. So I understand a lot of us might go for a CFA or FRM in these certifications, but we might not be comfortable with capital markets. So in B schools, you are supposed to have an opinion on or knowledge of something. Like you must have at least a top level knowledge of everything around you. So capital markets, the players who are recruiting you, you should know about them. You should know about both Indian and global markets, at how capital markets are working, what's the Nifty level, what is their P level. All these kind of small details might help you in showing your seriousness towards the role. And you should also follow a particular sector. Let's say, for example, you follow automotive sector. You should know what Maruti is doing, what Mahindra is doing, how Tata Motors is different from these companies, and how this industry basically works. So this will again help you in making your candidature better. So from a finance perspective, a deep domain knowledge is a must. So whichever industry you pick, you should know in and out that how this industry operates, where the raw material comes from, where the power comes from, what is the most you can say most densely populated areas for these industries, where these industries are in clusters. Let's say, for example, auto industries in Haryana, then even in Maharashtra. So how these players are making their moves. So you should know about them. And lastly, it's on the personal front. Again, you can start reading on a sector, and or maybe on markets, and then start writing about it on Twitter, or in your college magazines, your articles, etc. Because those publications will help again help you in showing your seriousness towards the role, that how serious you are, that and that maybe engineering was not a choice for you, or maybe you now want to switch careers. So this will show your seriousness, that yes, you are passionate about something and you want to make a course change. So you are writing about it, you are reading about it, and you are expressing the same. So expressing the same is the most important part. And I think if you work on the certifications and the following the capital markets part, you will obviously be inclined to do the third, writing on the thesis part. Uh, Lastly, I'll move to personal finance section. But before that, any questions? Any questions in career in finance, or the skill set? You can unmute if I have to give you access of the same.
Yeah, actually, what you guys can do is, anybody have a question, please do raise your hand. That way, we'll be able to unmute you so you can ask your question directly. Yeah. Okay. Vinay Kumar is raising his hand. I'm going to unmute Vinay Kumar. Vinay, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi,
Am I
Vinay.
audible?
Yes, Vinay, you are.
So you said that in MBA, I am studying in MBA finance first year. I want to opt to finance.
Okay.
Uh, what are the basic knowledges we should go before getting into career?
Okay. And which career path?
Banking and finance. Sir.
Okay. So, like, if I'm not getting your question wrong, you want to know about pre MBA skill set you should have before going, and that
Yes.
too in BFSI sector.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, for BFSI, I would recommend you should know what are the important ratios or the important metrics. Secondly, how the country is shaping up in terms of the BFSI landscape. So, for example, most of the you can say innovations are happening in this sector only. It's not the technology which is changing; it's a business that the technology is changing. So, for example, fintech firms, your easy credit cards, how they are in banking sector. These kind of things you can read upon, and this might help you in your BFSI sector. And anything else, Vinay?
Yes, sir. Means what are the certifications courses? Means NISM is also important for the career or what?
So NISM is a good certification, but those are not like it's not highly recognized by corporates. So there are certain NSIM certifications. One is your mutual fund distribution, or even your equity analyst. Those kind of certifications are, but unfortunately, the big corporates won't recognize or won't give much importance to those certifications. But yeah, those certifications can help you in landing a job with small finance firms, from where you can build your career again. Uh, Arvind, if you want to go next.
Arvind, I've unmuted you. Yeah, you can ask your question, Arvind.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, Arvind, we can.
Please suggest some reliable sources for capital markets and finance related news.
Okay,
You
so yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, so for capital markets, I would say start reading Business Standard or Economic Times. And if not physical hard copy, you can just like their Facebook page or follow them on Twitter, and make sure that you turn on notifications for them, so that you don't miss, or if you get multiple news items, at least you read few of them. And even Bloomberg Quint is a good source for Indian markets. Uh, then Hindu Business Line, all these are good sources. And all these are free sources as well. If you just like their Facebook page, make sure you follow, or see first option is there. It used to be there earlier on Facebook. I'm not sure if it's still there. I had them see first from my undergraduation days. So all those pages are my see first. So if you can just do that, and I think you will be seeing a lot of finance related news in a day whenever you open your Facebook or Twitter, and then you will be at least reading a few of them.
Yeah, it's a pertinent question also, because most people today are used to more reading in shorts instead of actual news articles. So
Yeah, so just sir, just to point out on that part, please don't read in shorts for capital markets, because capital market articles are like very detailed, and some most of the nuances are missed by in shorts, your those 60 words or whatever the word limit is there. So they won't give you true picture, or the actual picture, actual reason for something, why it happened. And you will have to again click on the full link if it is given by them to read that article. So just don't go by the 60 words, otherwise you will be with the half knowledge, and that might do more harm than good to you in your interviews.
correct. Definitely don't try to be jack of all trades. Try to be master of the one.
Yeah. And don't try to make shortcut with it. Just read 2 articles or even 1 article a day, but read it in a full depth, so that you know all the nuances around the same. It should not be like you know that something happened with a bank, and that's it. You should know why it happened with that bank, why it couldn't happen with other banks. And a detailed article will answer all these things.
Does that answer your question, Arvind?
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful.
Any other question? I don't see a hand raised now.
Yeah, seems like you're doing a great job of addressing all their queries.
Okay, so I'll just move to the last section now, personal finance tip for beginners. And this is something close to my heart, because I have seen a lot of new professionals or new joiners in most of the firms, like taking some adverse steps at the beginning, maybe because of peer pressure, or maybe because of again half knowledge, or someone they trust, they just blindly followed them. So there might be some friction around the same. And personal finance is more personal than finance, so it needs to be accustomed to you. And lastly, personal finance involves knowing you personally. So if you know, and you are the best person who knows you best. So so that's how personal finance work. And I'll just move towards the slide, and let's see how if you can get what my thoughts are around the same. So if you go to any advisor or maybe your friends, then most of them will ask you what is your goal, and you might answer it that you want to buy a car, let's say 2 years down the line, or you want to purchase a house maybe let's say 3 or 5 years down the line, and maybe a retirement corpus. So they will suggest you some instruments that make a FD or RD in a bank, open a PPF account, just buy some mutual funds, or just buy some hot shares, maybe Adani or Birla or Reliance, something like that, or even buy some commodity like gold, etc. But like I think this should be your second or last step in your personal finance journey. First step should be your knowing about your risk profile, that what kind of risk you want to take to achieve that return. And risk is something you would not have heard in any of the uh, like top news items, or whenever you search for any kind of financial instrument, you don't read the term risk, you just read the term return, that this much return was generated by FD versus mutual fund. This stock has risen this much, giving investors 100% return, 200% return, something like that. You would not have heard the term risk alongside that. What was the risk undertaken by someone? So what this risk involves is your time horizon, your savings rate, your fixed expenditure. All these things impact your risk profile. So by time horizon, I'll just quickly explain what I mean by all these terms. So time horizon is basically what kind of time duration you are willing to invest your money. You are willing to, let's say, part with your money 1 year or 5 years. That is your time horizon. Savings rate is what is the percentage of salary you are saving, or you are investing in a particular instrument, or maybe bucket of instruments, but what is that savings rate? 5%, 10%. Then is your fixed expenditure. What is the percentage of salary that is going towards your fixed expenditure, like rent and food? So in most of the cases, it takes up 50% of the salary, initial salary. And then dependents, if your family members are there, and let's say your father and mother, or any other guardian, they are not working, and this only depend upon your income, then that kind of adds a restriction to your risk profile, that you can't go for gambles, or you can't go for aggressive instruments like equities. Then is your liquidity. If you like if you're planning to, let's say, do an MBA after 1 or 3 years, then you need certain money at hand for doing MBA. And if you invest in equity, then you might not be able to get your capital back in 3 or 1 year. So those are the kind of risks that define your risk profile. Like these are the factors which affect your risk profile, and it's very important to understand where you lie on all these parameters. This is not an exhaustive list, but it is a good enough list to at least help you identify where what you are. Are you an aggressive investor, or can you become an aggressive investor? Can you become a moderate investor, or can you become a conservative investor? Like these are the things that will help you in defining your profile. And based on that risk profile, you will now move to your goals, that what should be the instrument to achieve that particular goal. So let's say, for example, if your investment profile was conservative, so the only instruments that you can use to achieve all these goals of yours is fixed deposit and PPF. You cannot use the last four instruments at all, because your risk profile doesn't allow you to venture in those areas or those instruments. So that's how personal finance works. If you have gone to your any of your friend, sorry, I think my screen just stopped. Yeah. So if you go to any of your friends, or maybe to your seniors, and maybe to anyone, they will just say you, if you say like, I want to get rich quickly, they will say you buy some shares or buy some equity mutual funds and you will get rich. but what they don't understand is your history, your past background, which influences your risk profile. And this is something that you only understand, or you can make them understand before asking for advice. So my humble advice to all of you would be just make this. You can take a screenshot of this page if you want. That these things should be analyzed first, and after these things, you should move towards this step. That which instruments will help you in achieving your goal. Lastly, this is my framework of investing, that how the ladder should move, or how you should move up the ladder. So whenever you start a job, I advise everyone that first thing they should do with their first salary is to buy a term insurance. So term insurance is typically a life insurance, just in case of your untimely demise, your family will receive a sum of money. And this can be as high as 25 times of your CTC. So let's say if my CTC is 10 lakh rupees, I can get a maximum cover of 2.5 crores. And that 2.5 crores is a good enough cover for my family to, let's say, run for next 30-40 odd years. And I think taking a maximum of it at the start is the most wise move, because the premium of your term insurance will remain constant throughout your life for the sum assured. Next thing is your health insurance. A lot of nuances are there in health insurance. If you have to part, or you can say you have to contribute in bill to some extent, or you can use a private ward or not, a private room or not. So just be careful about it. After taking these two insurances, then you should make an emergency fund that that helps you in your liquidity crisis, or maybe meeting some out of the line expenditures. And this should be parked in your maybe bank account, or your debt mutual funds, which you can easily redeem at no haircut. And then you can have a second line of emergency fund or not, but then you can move towards equities. You can have a equity mutual fund according to your risk profile again, and then lastly to the direct equity. So what I see people doing is firstly purchasing direct equity, and at the last of their monthly salary, or even after a year of their job, they purchase a term insurance. So that's wrong in my in my opinion, but this is something that I would advise everyone to follow. Yeah, so that's it from my side. Thank you, everyone. And you can contact me on any of these platforms. I have given my username, so you can contact me at any time. And any questions?
Right, I'm gonna start things off with a question that I'm sure most people are thinking, but I'm gonna verbalize that. Well, in today's day and age, I think when people start, I mean, especially this generation starts thinking about investing, I think the first question that comes up is, what about Bitcoin? What about cryptocurrency? Right? It's exciting. It has great valuations. I mean, people, suddenly make a lot of money online. So how should one invest? Should one not invest? And ideally, what should be the research or thought process behind that?
Yeah, so a very right question, sir. So again, for investing in Bitcoin, I would say if your this risk profile comes out to be aggressive, and you have all these things in place, at least till your emergency fund or your second line of emergency fund, then you can put some money in your cryptocurrencies. At personal front, I haven't invested in cryptocurrencies so far, because I have some other kind of investing mindset that I am not investing in the same. But if someone is willing to take that risk, I think if their risk profile is aggressive, if they have at least second line of emergency fund,
right,
they should go for cryptocurrencies. It should not be that from their first salary they should be thinking that let's say I've got a 50,000 rupees check, 50,000 transfer in my bank account. I'll just invest 50,000 in Dogecoin or Bitcoin, and maybe after 4 or 5 days I'll get to 1 lakh rupees. and then from that 1 lakh rupees I will purchase a term insurance, or maybe I'll just pay my rent, etc. That is a possibility. So getting a 50% or 100% return on your cryptocurrency or any of the investment, even in mutual fund, even in equity, that is a probability. But paying your rent, paying your food expenses, that is a certainty. So I would say make provisions for your certainties first, and then go for the probabilities.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're basically saying it's still risky. It's quite risky. Be careful,
Yeah.
or do this the last.
Yeah, it should be the last thing, because you like I said, so you wanted 50,000 to become 1 lakh in 4 or 5 days, and let's say you have a 25,000 rupees rent and 10,000 rupees food expenses. So 35,000 you will have to pay anyway.
Correct.
You can,
Yes, we can hear you.
yeah. So you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I said, that 25,000 rupees rent, 10,000 rupees food. So 35,000 you have to pay at the end of the month, or maybe at the beginning of the month from your 50,000 salary. So now if your Dogecoin investment becomes 25,000 of that, the 50,000 invested, how you are going to pay that 35,000 bill?
Correct.
You are now short of 10,000 rupees at hand.
Correct.
Whereas at the start of the month, you were 15,000 surplus.
Correct. It's a very insightful point you make, which most people, who invest don't understand, is that the more risky the investment, the greater the chance of fluctuation. So while,
Yes.
Dogecoin might indeed become 50,000 to a lakh maybe in 6 months, but in the next 2 months, it might go from 50,000 to 5,000 also, right? So,
Yeah,
so you need
yeah,
to be,
that's the thing.
you need
So,
to be prepared for that eventuality. Sorry.
yes. So in any instrument, I would say, even in equities,
Correct.
so whatever you are parking in your equities, it should be after all your fixed expenses. It should not be that equity will give some return and then I will invest in, I will pay my bills. It doesn't work that way. It might be beginner's luck for some, but in most of the cases, or in the longer horizon, it is a 100% sure scheme to fail.
Right. Interesting. Thank you for that, Chirag. I think Kumaresh has a question. I'm going to ask Kumaresh to unmute. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, Kumar, sure.
Well, a lot of people, as you mentioned, they try and separate their investments and their insurance. But some people, they try and go for plans like ULIPs, which combine both investment and insurance, or they go for SIPs, which combine multiple mutual funds. So what's your opinion of those plans?
Yeah. So firstly, on the ULIPs, so that's a hybrid product of insurance and mutual funds. So they keep on adjusting your insurance cover over time. So your insurance cover will keep on increasing over time, and your mutual fund or the investment component in ULIP will come down over time. But that product doesn't meet both of your choices. It is not giving you going to give you a 25x cover like term insurance. Neither it is going to give you returns like mutual fund. So it is something in between, but it's not, in most of the cases, it hasn't worked really well. And going for the SIPs, so SIP in multiple mutual fund, I think it's again like a strategy of diversification. If you want multiple mutual funds in your bucket that are not having similar underlyings, but SIP, I think it's a good way of investment because you are getting salary monthly, so you are investing monthly as well. So that makes certainly sense. But ULIPs as a product, I don't think it makes much sense.
Okay, thank you very much.
And any other questions?
I think one of the things that in case, somebody's thinking about it, when it comes to personal finance, again, a personal anecdote, start early. I think this is something that even Chirag said, right?
Yeah.
You must start early. And, I think there is a very good reason from a quantitative perspective why starting early makes sense. And I'm going to leave you with this one little rule that I find a very interesting rule. It's called the rule of 72. I'm just going to scribble this on the screen here, if that's possible indeed. So that's called the rule of 72, right? So you basically take any rate of interest that a bank or an institution offers you, you take that rate and you divide 72 by that number, and what you get is how many years it takes to double your money.
Double.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's say we keep talking about rate of return. So people are, an FD gives you 6%, 7% return. A very risky, equity mutual fund might give you 12%, right? And the difference between the 6 and the 12 is that 6% will double your money in 12 years, but 12% will double your money in 6 years, right? So if you want to take a risk, like Chirag mentioned, first cover your bases on your insurance and your emergency needs. But once you've done that, do take a little bit of risk, and if you do that a little early, I think it will pay off into the future, right? I think I'm going to leave that thought with you guys. Risk profile or notwithstanding, if you do want to take risk, please start early, right? Don't leave it for, I will do my, equity or investments. I will do that only after my MBA. You don't need to wait for another 2-3 years, because that's time that your money could have, probably, if not doubled, at least become 1.5 times, right? So just keep that perspective in mind. If there are no more questions, then I guess me and Chirag will take your leave. We hope that you found this session interesting and useful. I know I saw a lot of people in the poll saying that, yes, you found it interesting. In fact, I think we got 1 or 2 responses in the poll that said that you expected a few specific pointers. I'm not sure exactly what you guys were looking for. If somebody has a specific question that wasn't addressed, you can throw this up in chat to us, or maybe reach out to Chirag directly. I really would encourage you guys to try to connect with him over our platform, which is Mentors Capital, which allows you to directly connect with a mentor on a one-to-one basis, not just Chirag, but any mentor for that matter. All right, we'd like to thank the NIT Trichy for helping us organize this session, and all of you guys have been a wonderful audience. You've kept us on our toes. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a great weekend. Enjoy today's test match, and bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being a great audience, and thank you, sir, for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chirag.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.